Hi, I'm Mia Parrish with Devils in the Details, and today I'm talking to Dr. Joshua LeBaire from the Biodesign Institute about COVID testing. So Josh, we've had a really tough stretch here in Arizona, the headlines for all the wrong reasons, and testing keeps coming up as part of that solution. Why is testing so important?
I think until now, I don't think we realized how important testing really is. Testing is more than just providing us information. It really is, at this point, an intervention. When people get a positive test, it reinforces for them the importance of getting isolated. Everyone is a little bit unsure of how much they need to stay home, how much they need to avoid coming into contact with other people. And if they see that they've got a positive test, they know that they need to get isolated. It also helps us understand where the positive tests are, so that we can emphasize the importance of that even more to those communities and those areas. So, at one point, there was a lot of emphasis on contact tracing and case investigation, and of course, we will continue to do that. But there are so many positives in this state right now that there's just no way we can do that as much as we can do the testing. So we need as much testing as we can get, and we need people to get tested when they're asymptomatic. Not wait until they're sick, but even if they're asymptomatic, if they have any reason to believe that they may have been exposed, get tested and find out. And if you have been, get isolated. That's, I think, the big message we want right now.
And to make it easier, because the original tests, people were complaining about them being somewhat uncomfortable. You are part of developing a different methodology here at ASU, and you've put that into place for the public. Could you tell us about the saliva test?
Sure, yes. Early on, as we were doing testing, and we were originally doing testing with nasopharyngeal swabs, one of the things we appreciated was that just could not scale the way we needed it to. Part of our role, aside from helping with the public, is to make sure that the ASU family, the ASU community gets tested. And of course, we have a very big community here, at least 100,000 people between the teachers and the students and everybody coming back. So, we knew that the swabs, aside from not being particularly comfortable, are very demanding in terms of personal protective equipment because they run the risk of stimulating a cough or a sneeze. And so the person collecting the sample needs to be protected. But they also are very demanding on medical personnel because not anyone can give an NP swab test. And if we had to rely on medical personnel to collect the samples from 100,000 people, it just wasn't going to work. So we developed this idea of a saliva test, which is much simpler to collect. Basically, I have some props here. I'll show you what they look like. First of all, we have your basic drinking straw. So this is something that you get at any fast food place. And then the other is a tube. And this is all you need to collect a sample. And you put the straw in the tube like that. And then you just spit down the straw using the saliva in your mouth until you fill it up to a line, and it's just about that far. It's about a half a teaspoon. And once you've done that, we just close up the tube like this, and we're done. We just submit that. So it's a pretty easy process. And the nice thing about it is that it scales. We can have tens of people, even 100 people, all at once collecting samples, as long as they can stay socially spaced apart, collecting these samples. It does not induce coughing. It does not induce sneezing. So they just collect the sample, seal it up, and then submit it. And so we've been doing this now, and both for the public and for the ASU community, and it's working quite well.
So I heard that you learned something interesting about, now that you're a saliva test expert.
There's a lot of tricks to the trade here. So one of the first things we learned was that we need to make sure people understand that what we want is saliva. We do not want snot. We do not want sputum, nothing thick and mucousy. We just want that liquid stuff that's, in and about your tongue. That's the first thing. And so we have to tell people not to eat or drink before the test for about 30 minutes. And we have to really educate them that what we want. And so half the trick here is this straw, because the straw encourages saliva. Snot and sputum won't fit down that straw. So that's part of the key. Well, this is why you do these things, because you learn as you go. The other thing we learned is that some people just have a hard time producing saliva. And so this is one of the big advantages of being at a university like ASU that is both innovative and thoughtful, and we have such a diverse population of experts. And so we reached out to our psychology community and we said, can give us some ideas. You guys have studied, since the days of Pavlov, you've been thinking about how to make people salivate, right?
Wow.
And so they did some digging for us in the literature and got us a paper that explained that one of the things that really triggers salivation the most, well, first of all, what stimulates salivation is the thought that you're going to eat. And that of course goes back to Pavlov. So the anticipation of eating is key, but specifically the anticipation of eating something sour is really a strong stimulator of salivation. Multiple ways to do that. Part of that is showing people sliced lemons or images of sliced lemons or images of food that's sour. Possibly, sour candy might work. The other thing is inducing imagery. So talking to the person and telling them to think about, what would this taste like? What would this feel like in your mouth? All of that really helps stimulate the juices going. I can tell you, for me, it's kimchi. I love kimchi. And the minute I start thinking about eating kimchi, I start to salivate. So whatever it takes, get people to salivate, right? So, and then we went to the School of Design and said, can you guys help us? And so Dean Tepper is going to get a team together. They're going to edit some video footage. Maybe we'll hook it up via cell phone so people can, listen to and watch it, a 30-second cycled imagery of sour food. We don't know exactly how it's going to work, but we're going to try to do this to help people along.
So Josh, how do people take advantage of this? How can they get tested?
Right. So to use this test, it depends a little bit about where you are and who you are. So the ASU community, we do testing all the time. We have tests running at all the different campuses in Arizona right now. And we're looking to expand that to our campuses in Washington, D.C. and in California and some of the more far-reaching places for ASU. But certainly within Arizona, at all the campuses, we run testing usually on the same day at that place every week. I know that at Biodesign, we do the testing at least once a week, maybe even more than that. And you go online and there's a website to click on where you register. And a key piece of our testing is that you sign up for a time. And that's important because we don't want people to be waiting forever. And if you come at the time that you're scheduled, it regulates the flow and keeps our lines minimal. Since then, since we started that operation, we've signed an agreement with the state of Arizona and the Department of Health Services to provide testing for the public at large. And if you don't have insurance, the state of Arizona will underwrite the cost. So no matter who you are, it won't cost you anything personally. And same deal, if you go to the ADHS website, there's a listing there for saliva testing, and we're the only ones in the state that do it. So click on that link. It'll take you to the sign up. It's a sign up that you can do on your phone or a sign up that you can do on your computer. And once you sign up, it takes some critical information from you, including you generate a password for your own portal so that you have privacy and you can look up your own results. And then you sign up for a time. And when you go to get tested, you click back on the link that it generates that shows a code, a VR code. We scan that code and we scan the code on the tube. So this tube here has, I don't know if you can see that, a little barcode on it. So that barcode plus the code on your phone will link the two together, and then when we collect the sample, run the result, and then you'll get an email and a text to tell you that your result is ready, and then you log into your own portal to get your result.
Fantastic. And how long does it take to get your results? Because that's been another big sticking point, right?
Right.
You wait days and days and days.
Right. It's critical to get results back quickly if it's going to be interventional. If it's going to be able to prevent you from spreading it, you need to know soon that you've got it. So we've always been able to get it under 2 days. We aim for 24 hours. We're hitting just a little bit above 24 hours with these tests, but usually certainly within 36 hours, you should get a result.
Wow.
And know what you have.
So there are faster results, it's less invasive, easy to administer. You might get a lemon candy or at least a hint
An
of
image
it,
of one at this point.
an image of one. You
Right.
don't need medical professionals to give the test.
Right.
So why isn't everyone doing this?
I will tell you, we are well subscribed. When we
Okay.
open up our web portal for people to sign up, they fill pretty quickly in a matter of hours. In fact, the first time we did it, it broke the server. So we had to scale up our server, you live and learn, to sort of a 10-fold more powerful system so that we could take all the interest. So we are working as quickly as we can to expand the number of tests we can do in a day. We're hiring people to run more tests so that we can have multiple shifts every day. We are ordering more robots so that we can handle more samples at a time. We're doing everything we can to get this as big as we can.
And so you'll be doing more of it. What's the goal? So for daily testing, you're doing about how many now?
We are aiming to do 16,000 tests a day. That's going to be a heavy lift, but that's our target. Yeah.
Wow.
Big. Yeah. We're renovating space downstairs so that we can add more robots. It's one of those things where you have to be thinking about the entire end-to-end process and making sure that you've got no weak links on the chain. So you got to make sure you've got good supplies coming in, that you have adequate plastic coming in, you have enough robots, that you have redundancy in some of the key instruments, that in case one goes out, you have to make sure that you have the right personnel, everything from the people in the lab to run the samples to engineers to make sure the instruments are running properly. You really have to kind of think about the whole process.
And what else? It sounds like you're working on a whole lot of stuff, but what else?
When we started this whole thing, it was 6 people from my group and me on a Zoom call to say, can we do this? Those 6 people have now turned into 60 people who meet every day. And we run the teams, the procurement team. We have the partnership management team that talk to the folks that bring in the samples, the actual logistics of bringing in the samples, the people who act as the coordinator for all the sample collection. Got the lab team and their processing, the automation team. We got people who deal with the database and making sure that remains private but functional and large scale. The reporting team. We have a team that does data modeling. We have all these different teams and everybody reports every day.
And how many volunteers do you have?
We got a number of other research teams that are very active doing things. We have folks upstairs who are doing sequencing of the virus so that we can understand the genetic variation of this virus, because that's going to tell us something about both how this virus changes, but also where it's coming from, so that we can actually sort of trace back, how things are spreading and via what directions. We have a group that are working on what's called serology. This is looking at the antibodies we produce, not just who's had the virus, but we also want to know which proteins in the virus are inducing a response so that we better understand what the triggers are for the immunology, as well as looking at serology to the related viruses, so the other coronaviruses. One question that we all want to know the answer to is, does prior exposure to a different coronavirus affect your outcome for this coronavirus? Does it reduce the likelihood of a bad outcome? Does it increase your sensitivity? We don't know. So we'd like to know those answers. So we have people working on that. Of course, we have people working on different strategies for inducing vaccines. Folks who are adopting the pox viruses, like the relatives of the smallpox virus, which is a virus that we understand well for how to make it as a vaccine. So can we slip a coronavirus gene in there and use that approach to generate a response here? We have other people looking at using plants as vectors for making the proteins. So there are folks doing that here. So quite a lot of people. And then of course there are people doing all kinds of social research about how the virus is spreading and how to trace the virus and what communities are not getting the appropriate attention that they need to beat this thing. So lots and lots of activity going on here.
No, and thank you so much. Thank you for taking time to talk to us today. And thank you for all you're doing to help keep us safe and well. So.
It's a pleasure to do both.
Thank you so much, and you stay well.
You too. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.